Tae-sung Kim wiped the sweat from his brow as he tightened the last bolt on his ship's cooling system. The small merchant vessel, named *Morningstar*, wasn't much to look at, but it was his. 6 years of savings from working in the mines of Mars had finally given him enough to buy this ship and start his own delivery business. Engine check complete, he said to himself, his voice echoing in the empty engine room. At 32 years old, Tae-sung was built like most humans who grew up in Earth's gravity, strong and sturdy. His hands were rough from years of manual labor, but they moved with surprising grace when working with machinery. He closed the panel and made his way to the cockpit. The stars outside his viewport looked different this far from Earth. Humanity had just begun to explore this sector of space. The ship's computer showed no other vessels nearby, which was exactly how Tae-sung liked it. A sudden alarm broke the silence. "Warning, unknown vessel approaching," announced the ship's computer in its flat voice. Tae-sung's heart jumped. He rushed to the scanner. The ship that appeared on his screen was like nothing he had ever seen before. It was massive, at least 20 times larger than his small transport vessel. Its hull gleamed with a metal unknown to Earth science, and strange lights pulsed along its sides. "This is the Galactic Federation battlecruiser Eternal Dawn *" came a voice over his communication system. The words were in perfect English, but the voice had an odd musical quality to it. "Human vessel, power down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Tae-sung froze. Everyone on Earth had heard rumors about aliens, but official contact had never been confirmed by the government. Some remote outposts had reported strange sightings, but nothing like this. Nothing so direct. "I repeat, power down your engines. This is Captain Do-hyun of the Galactic Federation. Your compliance is expected." Tae-sung's mind raced. Run? Fight? Neither seemed like good options against such a massive ship. With shaking hands, he reached for the communication button. "This is Tae-sung Kim of Earth. I'm powering down." "That is your classification. Earth is categorized as a Class 12 death world due to its high gravity, extreme climate variations, dangerous wildlife, and the aggressive evolutionary path of its dominant species." Han Jae said this as if explaining a simple fact to a child. "Few species evolve." The ship rocked again. This time, even Do-hyun stumbled. The alien captain looked at Tae-sung with those strange, shifting pupils. "It seems your interrogation will have to wait, human." "What's happening?" Tae-sung asked. "Our quantum drive is failing. If it cannot be stabilized, this ship will be destroyed." Do-hyun's voice was calm despite the dire words. "You will be moved to an escape pod with the other non-essential personnel." Tae-sung hesitated, then asked, "What's wrong with the drive exactly?" "The cooling system has failed catastrophically. Without it, the quantum field becomes unstable." Do-hyun was already moving toward the wall, clearly considering the conversation over. "I'm an engineer," Tae-sung said quickly. "A good one. I might be able to help." Do-hyun turned, those alien eyes studying him. "You? Help with technology centuries beyond your civilization's understanding. Maybe your technology is advanced, but engineering principles don't change. Heat is heat. Cooling systems are cooling systems." Tae-sung stood taller. "And from the sound of those alarms, you don't have many options left." Another violent shake rocked the ship. The lights went out completely for several seconds before emergency lighting bathed everything in a red glow. Do-hyun's wrist device lit up again. "Captain, Chief Engineer Jae-ho reports the situation is beyond emergency protocols. The drive will go critical in 15 minutes. Evacuation is progressing, but we will lose the ship." For a long moment, Do-hyun stared at Tae-sung. Then the alien captain made a decision. "Bring the human to engineering," Do-hyun commanded into the device, "and return his tools." Turning to Tae-sung, the captain's voice took on a new edge. "Deathworlder, it seems you will have a chance to prove your worth after all." Two alien guards rushed Ta Sung through the twisting corridors of the Eternal Dawn. The ship continued to shake violently, and warning lights flashed along every wall. Other crew members ran in the opposite direction, heading for escape pods. Many gave Tai Sung confused or fearful looks as they passed. "Faster, human," one guard said, pushing him forward. They arrived at a large door marked with symbols that glowed red. The door slid open to reveal a massive chamber filled with technology unlike anything Tai Sung had ever seen. At the center stood what he guessed was the quantum drive, a column of swirling energy contained within rings of metal that spun in different directions. But even to his untrained eye, something was clearly wrong. The energy was pulsing erratically, and one section of the containment rings glowed dangerously hot. A blue-skinned alien with markings that suggested higher rank rushed toward them. He was shorter than the others Tai Sung had seen, but his eyes held the same shifting pupil pattern. "Captain, you cannot be serious," the alien said to someone behind Tai Sung. "A primitive. In my engine room." Tai Sung turned to see Captain Do Hyun had followed them in. "Chief Engineer Jai-ho," Do Hyun said calmly despite the chaos around them. "Your team has failed to contain the situation. The human claims engineering knowledge. At this point, we have nothing to lose." Jai-ho's eyes narrowed. "We have protocols, which have failed." Do Hyun cut him off. 14 minutes until catastrophic failure. Use the human or evacuate with the others. Your choice." The captain handed Tai Sung his toolkit, a simple set of human-made tools that looked primitive compared to the technology around them. Jai-ho made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Fine. Follow me, human. Touch nothing without permission." As they approached the drive, the heat became intense. Tai Sung could feel sweat forming instantly and running down his face and back. Jai-ho tapped a symbol on his wrist, and a shimmering field appeared around him. "Heat protection," he explained curtly. "Unfortunately, we don't have one configured for human physiology." Tai Sung nodded. "I'll manage." Growing up in Earth's climate extremes and working in the mines of Mars had given him good heat tolerance. Jai-ho pointed to the glowing section. "The primary cooling relay has failed completely. The secondary and tertiary systems tried to compensate, but were not designed for prolonged operation under these conditions. Now all three are non-functional." "What's the coolant?" Ta Sung asked, squinting through the heat distortion to examine the system. "Liquid nitrogen with suspended metaparticles for quantum field stabilization," Jai-ho answered. Tai Sung nodded. The principles were familiar even if the technology was advanced. "And what's causing the heat buildup? Just the drive, or is there a reaction taking place?" Jai-ho looked surprised at the intelligent question. "The quantum field generator creates excess heat as a byproduct. The cooling system normally maintains optimal temperature." "Show me the coolant tanks and distribution system," Tai Sung said, his mind already working on solutions. Jai-ho hesitated, then led him to a console. He tapped several symbols, bringing up a 3D schematic of the drive system. "The tanks are intact," Jai-ho explained, "but the distribution network has failed here, here, and here." He pointed to 3 sections of the schematic. Another violent shake rocked the ship. The lights flickered, and a new alarm joined the others. 12 minutes, announced a computerized voice. Tai Sung studied the schematic carefully. "The coolant is still in the tanks, but it can't reach the drive." "Right." "Correct." "Then we create a new path." Ta Sung opened his toolkit and began sorting through his equipment. Jai-ho's pupils contracted to tiny points. "Impossible. The system is pressurized and operates at quantum precision. You cannot simply reroute it with whatever primitive tools you have there." "Not permanently, no," Tai Sung agreed. "But we don't need permanent. We need 13 minutes. Tai Sung turned to Captain Do Hyun, who had been watching silently. "I need your strongest metal-cutting tools, any high-temperature hoses you have on board, and at least 4 of your crew to help. And I need them now." For a moment, No one moved. Then Du Hyun nodded to one of the guards. Get him what he needs. Jai-ho began to protest, but another alarm cut him off. 11 minutes to critical failure, the computer announced. What followed was the most intense work experience of Tae-sung's life. As crew members brought the requested supplies, he quickly explained his plan to Jai-ho. We're going to cut access points here and here, he said, pointing to the schematic. Then we'll run external cooling lines directly from the tanks to these 3 intake points near the drive core. The pressure, Jai-ho began, will be controlled by these manual valves from my ship's coolant system. Tae-sung finished, holding up several brass fittings from his toolkit. They're not pretty, but they'll handle the load for a short time. Jai-ho looked skeptical, but had no better ideas. The heat near the drive was almost unbearable as they worked. The alien crew members had their protective fields, but Tae-sung had only his human endurance. His skin turned red, and blisters began to form on his hands. But he kept working. How can you function in this heat? One of the aliens asked as they connected a hose to a newly cut access point. Earth has deserts, Tae-sung said simply, tightening a fitting. And I worked near furnaces in the Mars mines. 9 minutes to critical failure, the computer announced. The makeshift cooling system was taking shape. Using a combination of alien cutting tools and his own fittings, Tae-sung had created a bypass that connected the coolant tanks directly to the drive's cooling intake. It won't be efficient, he explained to Jai-ho. We'll lose about 40% of optimal cooling capacity through these connections, but it should be enough to stabilize the drive. Jai-ho was no longer arguing. He worked alongside Tae-sung, making adjustments based on his greater knowledge of the drive's specifics. 7 minutes to critical failure. The final connections were the hardest. They required reaching into a space directly adjacent to the overheating drive. The temperature there was high enough to melt some metals. I can't send my crew in there, Jai-ho said, looking at the narrow access space. Even with protection, it's too dangerous. Tae-sung wiped sweat from his eyes. I'll do it. Human, the temperature in that space is over 200 degrees Celsius. You would die. Not if I'm quick, Tae-sung said. He emptied his water bottle over his head and arms, soaking himself. This will buy me about 30 seconds before serious burns set in. That should be enough. Before anyone could stop him, Tae-sung grabbed the final connection fitting and climbed into the access space. The heat hit him like a physical blow. His wet clothes began to steam immediately. He could feel his skin beginning to burn, but he forced himself to focus. 30 seconds. That was all he needed. His fingers, already blistered, found the connection point. He aligned the fitting, twisted it into place, and tightened it with 3 quick turns of his wrench. 20 seconds. He connected the hose, secured it with a clamp, and reached for the manual valve. 25 seconds. He turned the valve and was rewarded with the sound of liquid flowing through the hose. 5 minutes to critical failure. Tae-sung pulled himself out of the access space and collapsed on the floor. His arms were bright red, and his face felt like it was on fire. An alien medic immediately rushed to him with some kind of spray. Did it work? Tae-sung managed to ask through cracked lips. Jai-ho was staring at the drive monitoring system. Coolant is flowing to the drive. Temperature is dropping. There was disbelief in his voice. Quantum field stabilizing. 4 min. Automatic shutdown aborted. Drive stabilizing, the computer announced. A cheer went up from the engineering crew. Captain Du Hyun stepped forward, looking at Tae-sung with those strange, shifting eyes. The cooling system is working at 67% efficiency, Jai-ho reported, amazement clear in his voice. Enough to maintain safe operation until we can reach a repair station. The alien medic continued to spray something cool and soothing on Tae-sung's burns. The pain was already fading. You did the impossible, Du Hyun said to Tae-sung. With primitive tools and no knowledge of our technology. Tae-sung tried to shrug, but it hurt too much. Engineering is engineering, no matter where you're from. Heat is always the enemy of machines. Do-hyun turned to Jae-ho. How long until we reach the nearest Federation station for proper repairs? Jae-ho consulted his console. At current safe speed, 3 days. Then the human will assist with maintaining this temporary solution until we arrive, Do-hyun declared. Jae-ho looked like he wanted to object but thought better of it. Instead, he asked Tae-sung, "What else can your primitive tools do?" Tae-sung managed a smile despite his burns. "You'd be surprised. But first, I have a few ideas about improving that makeshift cooling system. If you give me access to your fabrication equipment, I think I can get you up to 80% efficiency by tomorrow." Jae-ho and Do-hyun exchanged looks. "Very well," the captain said. "But you will be supervised at all times, and the chief engineer must approve all modifications." Tae-sung nodded. He was no longer a prisoner being taken for interrogation. He was now a valuable asset, and he had a feeling this was just the beginning. 2 days had passed since Tae-sung saved the Eternal Dawn from destruction. His burns had healed remarkably fast, thanks to the advanced medical spray the aliens provided. The ship was now running smoothly, its quantum drive operating at a stable 83% efficiency, even better than Tae-sung had promised. During those 2 days, Tae-sung had earned something he never expected: respect from the alien crew. Engineers who had once looked at him with suspicion now sought his opinion on various systems. Even Chief Engineer Jae-ho had grudgingly acknowledged his skills. "Your solutions are unorthodox," Jae-ho had admitted while examining Tae-sung's improved cooling bypass. "But effective." Tae-sung was no longer confined to a cell. Instead, he had been given small but comfortable quarters near the engineering section. Captain Do-hyun had even arranged for the ship's food synthesizers to create something close to Earth food. On the morning of the 3rd day, Tae-sung was eating a bowl of what the synthesizer claimed was rice. It wasn't quite right, but it was close enough, when his door slid open. Captain Do-hyun stood there, looking troubled. "We need to talk," the captain said. Tae-sung put down his bowl. "Is there a problem with the drive?" "No. Your repairs continue to hold. This is about something else." Do-hyun entered and sat across from Tae-sung. "We will reach Orbital Station 9 in approximately 6 hours. Protocol dictates that you should be transferred to Federation authorities for questioning about your presence in restricted space." Tae-sung's stomach tightened. For 2 days, he had almost forgotten he was still technically a prisoner. "I thought after helping save your ship, personal gratitude does not override Federation law," Do-hyun said. "However, I have been reconsidering your case." The captain seemed to be choosing his words carefully. "Your actions have demonstrated qualities that contradict certain assumptions about humans. The Federation Council classifies Earth as a death world based on reports from early observers. These reports highlighted your species' capacity for violence and territorial behavior." "We can be those things," Tae-sung admitted. "But we're also problem solvers, survivors. We help each other." Do-hyun's pupils shifted, contracting to thin lines. "Indeed, which brings me to a proposal. Instead of turning you over to Federation authorities, I could list you as an emergency engineering consultant in my report. This would allow me to return you to your home system without further questioning." Tae-sung leaned forward. "You'd do that. Why?" "Because the Federation's policy of isolation toward Earth may be misguided, and because I pay my debts." Before Tae-sung could respond, an alarm sounded, different from the emergency klaxon of the drive failure, but urgent nonetheless. Do-hyun's wrist device lit up. "Captain, we've received a distress signal from a Federation colony transport, the New Horizon *. They report being under attack by void hunters in the Altaris system." The captain stood immediately. "Set course to intercept. Maximum safe speed." The officer on the other end hesitated. "Sir, even at maximum speed, we would arrive in 3 hours. The nearest patrol vessel is 5 hours away. Protocol suggests we should notify Central Command and continue to Orbital Station 9. Do-hyun's face hardened. How many civilians on the asterisk New Horizon asterisk? Manifest indicates 327 colonists, mostly families. Set course immediately, Do-hyun ordered. I will not abandon Federation citizens to the Void Hunters. The connection ended, and Do-hyun turned to Tae-sung. Our conversation will have to wait. Who are the Void Hunters? Tae-sung asked, following the captain as he strode toward the bridge. Pirates. The worst kind. They target colony ships for their supplies, and Do-hyun paused. They sell captives to species that use them for various unpleasant purposes. When they reached the bridge, the crew was already preparing for the course change. The main screen showed a star map with 2 blinking lights, one red, one blue, separated by a considerable distance. Current status of the asterisk New Horizon asterisk? Do-hyun asked as he took his command chair. A female officer with silver markings on her face responded. Their last transmission reported 5 Void Hunter vessels surrounding them. Their shields are failing. They've activated their distress beacon, but have gone silent since. Time to intercept. 3 hours and 12 minutes at maximum safe speed, the navigation officer reported. Do-hyun's expression was grim. Too long. By then it will be too late. Tae-sung, who had been standing quietly at the back of the bridge, stepped forward. What if you could go faster? All eyes turned to him. The drive is running at 83%, Tae-sung continued. But that's with safety margins I built in. We could push it higher. Jae-ho, who had just entered the bridge, immediately objected. Absolutely not. The makeshift cooling system isn't designed for higher outputs. It can handle it, Tae-sung insisted. With some adjustments, we could safely reach 95%, maybe even higher, and risk another catastrophic failure. Jae-ho shook his head. The bypass connections would never hold. They will if we reinforce them, Tae-sung said. He turned to Do-hyun. Captain, how much time would we save at 95% efficiency? The navigation officer quickly calculated. That would reduce our arrival time to just under 2 hours. 2 hours might be enough to save some of those people, Tae-sung said. Do-hyun looked at Jae-ho. Can it be done? The chief engineer hesitated. The humans' modifications have proven more reliable than expected, but this goes against all safety protocols. The drive was never meant to operate this way. I didn't ask about protocols, Do-hyun said firmly. I asked if it can be done. Jae-ho reluctantly nodded. Technically, yes, but I strongly advise against it. Do-hyun turned back to Tae-sung. You understand that if the drive fails again, we might not be able to save the ship this time. I do, Tae-sung said. But I also understand that 327 people might die if we don't try. For a long moment, the bridge was silent. Then Do-hyun made his decision. Prepare to increase drive output to 95%. Chief Engineer Jae-ho and Engineer Tae-sung will make the necessary modifications. All non-essential systems should be shut down to reduce power drain. As the crew rushed to comply, Jae-ho pulled Tae-sung aside. This is madness. Even if the bypass holds, the strain on the primary drive components could cause permanent damage. Then we'll fix that too, Tae-sung said simply. Let's get to work. The next hour was a blur of activity. Tae-sung and Jae-ho, along with a team of engineers, reinforced the cooling bypass with stronger materials. They rerouted additional power to the containment fields and installed extra monitoring sensors to watch for signs of failure. Finally, they were ready. Drive modifications complete, Jae-ho reported from engineering. But I want my objection officially noted. Noted, Do-hyun said from the captain's chair. Proceed with drive increase. Tae-sung stood next to the main engineering console as Jae-ho slowly increased the drive's power output. The ship began to vibrate slightly as the quantum field intensified. 85%, Jai-ho announced. The vibration increased, but the readings remained stable. 90%. Warning lights began to flash on the console, but Tae-sung quickly adjusted several settings. Bypass temperature rising, but within acceptable limits, he reported. 95%, Jai-ho said, his voice tight with tension. The ship lurched forward as it accelerated to a speed no Federation vessel had ever safely achieved. The stars on the view screen blurred even more than usual. New estimated arrival time, 1 hour and 48 minutes, the navigation officer announced. Do-hyun nodded in satisfaction. Maintain this speed. All weapons systems on standby. We may be arriving in the middle of a battle. For the next hour, Tae-sung worked with Jai-ho to keep the drive stable. Small problems arose constantly, but they managed to solve each one. You know, Jai-ho said quietly as they adjusted a power flow regulator. On my world, we have a saying. The greatest innovations come from the edge of disaster. Tae-sung smiled. On Earth, we say necessity is the mother of invention. Jai-ho's pupils widened slightly, the alien equivalent of a smile. Perhaps our species are not so different after all. Suddenly, the ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The view screen showed a terrifying scene. 3 large, black ships with jagged designs surrounding a smaller, damaged vessel. 2 other black ships lay disabled nearby. The New Horizon has sustained heavy damage, reported the tactical officer. Life support is failing. Void Hunter vessels are attempting to breach their hull. Do-hyun stood. Battle stations. Prepare to engage all Void Hunter vessels. The weapons officer looked alarmed. Sir, Federation protocol prohibits engaging multiple hostile vessels without backup. I am aware of the protocol, Do-hyun said calmly. I am choosing to ignore it. Those people will not be abandoned. He turned to Tae-sung. Engineer, you have already done the impossible once. Can our enhanced drive give us an advantage in combat? Tae-sung thought quickly. The increased power could be diverted to your weapons and shields. It won't last long, but it might give you an edge they're not expecting. Do-hyun nodded. Do it. As Tae-sung rushed back to engineering with Jai-ho, he heard Do-hyun giving orders to the tactical officer. The Eternal Dawn was about to do something truly unthinkable. Take on 3 pirate vessels to save a colony ship, using modifications created by a primitive human from a Deathworld. And somehow, Tae-sung knew this was just the beginning of what humans and aliens could accomplish together. All weapons online. Shields at maximum, reported the tactical officer as the Eternal Dawn approached the battle. The 3 Void Hunter ships had not yet noticed the Federation battlecruiser. They were still focused on breaching the colony ship's hull. Element of surprise is our advantage, Captain Do-hyun said calmly. Target the nearest Void Hunter vessel and fire when ready. In the engineering section, Tae-sung and Jai-ho worked frantically to route extra power to the weapon systems. The makeshift bypass that had allowed them to travel at unprecedented speed was now being reconfigured to boost the offensive capabilities of the ship. This goes against every safety regulation in the Federation engineering manual, Jai-ho muttered as he rerouted power conduits. Sometimes you have to write a new manual, Tae-sung replied, adjusting a flow regulator. The ship shuddered as its main weapons fired. On the bridge view screen, beams of energy far more powerful than standard Federation weapons struck the nearest pirate vessel. Instead of merely damaging the ship's shields as expected, the enhanced weapons cut through them completely, slicing off one of the vessel's weapon arrays. Direct hit, the tactical officer announced, surprise evident in her voice. Enemy vessels' port weapons disabled. The other 2 Void Hunter ships immediately broke off their attack on the colony vessel and turned to face this new threat. They're charging weapons, the tactical officer reported. Evasive maneuvers, Do-hyun ordered. Maintain weapons lock and continue firing. The Eternal Dawn moved with surprising agility for a ship its size, dodging the first volley of enemy fire. The enhanced engines allowed it to accelerate and turn faster than any standard Federation vessel. "Captain," came Jai-Ho's voice over the communication system. "The enhanced power output is putting extreme stress on the primary control systems. We can maintain this level for approximately 7 minutes before risking critical failure." "Understood," Do-hyun replied. "We'll make those minutes count." The battle that followed was unlike anything recorded in Federation history. The Eternal Dawn a standard patrol cruiser enhanced by a human engineer's makeshift modifications, fought with the power and agility of a ship twice its class. 2 Void Hunter vessels fired simultaneously, their energy weapons striking the Eternal Dawn's shields. The ship rocked violently, shields holding at 70%. The tactical officer reported. "Return fire," Do-hyun ordered. "Target their propulsion systems." Another barrage of enhanced weapons fire struck one of the pirate ships, disabling its engines completely. The ship began to drift, its weapons systems still operational but unable to maneuver. "One down," Do-hyun said. 2 remaining. In engineering, warning lights flashed across every console. The makeshift cooling system was beginning to fail under the stress. "We're losing the starboard power conduits," Jai-Ho shouted over the noise of overworked machinery. Tae-sung quickly examined the system readouts. "We need to reroute through the secondary backup grid." "That's not possible," Jai-Ho insisted. "The connections aren't compatible." Tae-sung grabbed tools from his kit. "They will be. Give me 2 minutes." Without waiting for permission, he crawled into a narrow access tunnel, tools in hand. The space was barely big enough for his human frame, and the heat was intense. But as a Deathworlder, Tae-sung could endure conditions that would incapacitate most Federation engineers. On the bridge, Do-hyun watched as the remaining Void Hunter vessels coordinated their attack. "They're attempting to flank us," the tactical officer warned. "Divert all available power to forward shields," Do-hyun ordered. "Prepare for impact." The pirate ships fired simultaneously. The Eternal Dawn shook violently as multiple energy beams struck its shields. "Shields at 45%, came the report. "We can't take many more hits like that." "Engineering, status report," Do-hyun called. For a moment, there was no response. Then Jai-Ho's voice came through, sounding impressed. "The human has done it again, Captain. He's created a connection between incompatible systems. Power restored to weapons and shields. Fire everything we have at the vessel on the left," Do-hyun ordered immediately. The Eternal Dawn's weapons discharged with renewed power. The targeted Void Hunter ship tried to evade, but was too slow. The enhanced energy beams cut through its shields and struck its power core directly. The pirate vessel exploded in a burst of light and debris. "One enemy remaining," the tactical officer announced. The final Void Hunter ship, seeing its companions destroyed, suddenly broke off its attack and began to flee. "They're retreating," the navigation officer said. Do-hyun's eyes narrowed. "The Void Hunters would sell those colonists into slavery. I will not allow them to escape to attack another day." He turned to the tactical officer. "Disable their engines. Leave their life support intact." Another precision strike from the enhanced weapons disabled the fleeing vessel's propulsion system, leaving it drifting in space. "Send a message to Federation headquarters," Do-hyun ordered. "Report our position and request assistance for the colony ship and prisoner transport for the captured Void Hunters." As the bridge crew complied, Do-hyun turned to the communications officer. "Open a channel to the New Horizon *." The colony ship's captain appeared on screen, his face showing a mixture of relief and disbelief. "Captain Do-hyun, your arrival was unexpected and most welcome. How did you reach us so quickly?" "Our distress call went out less than 2 hours ago. We had some unconventional engineering assistance," Do-hyun replied with a slight smile. "What is your status?" "Life support is failing in sections 3 through 7. We have wounded that need medical attention. But thanks to you, we're alive. Prepare to receive medical teams and engineers, Du Hyun said. We'll have you stabilized shortly. After the communication ended, Du Hyun made his way to engineering. The section was filled with steam from ruptured cooling lines, and warning lights flashed on nearly every console. In the center of it all stood Tai-sung and Jae-ho, covered in sweat and mechanical fluids, but both wearing expressions of triumph. Engineering report, Du Hyun requested formally. Jae-ho straightened. The enhanced systems performed beyond all expectations, Captain. However, we will require extensive repairs before we can safely travel to a Federation facility. And the colony ship? Their main systems are damaged but repairable, Jae-ho said. With your permission, I would like Engineer Tae-sung to assist with those repairs. Unconventional methods might be exactly what they need. Do Hyun turned to Tae-sung. You've saved my ship and now 327 colonists. The Federation owes you a debt that cannot easily be repaid. Tai-sung shrugged. I just did what needed to be done. Nevertheless, Du Hyun continued, your actions have forced me to reconsider much of what I thought I knew about humans. When we return to Federation space, I will recommend a full review of Earth's classification and the policies regarding human integration into galactic society. 3 days later, the Eternal Dawn and the repaired colony ship New Horizon traveled together toward the nearest Federation station. Federation patrol ships had arrived to take the captured Void Hunters into custody, and news of the battle had already spread throughout nearby systems. Tae-sung stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Captain Du Hyun joined him there. We will arrive at Orbital Station 9 tomorrow, the captain said. The Federation Council has requested your presence at a special hearing. Tae-sung tensed. Am I still in trouble for being in restricted space? Do Hyun's pupils widened in what Tae-sung had come to recognize as amusement. Quite the opposite. The Council wishes to formally recognize your contribution to saving the New Horizon and its colonists. There is also talk of creating a new position, Human Liaison to the Federation Engineering Corps. Tae-sung turned to face the captain, surprised. They want me to work with Federation engineers. Officially? Indeed. Your species has clearly developed unique approaches to problem solving that could benefit the Federation. And perhaps we have technologies that could benefit Earth. Tae-sung looked back at the stars. What changed their minds? One human fixing a ship doesn't seem like enough to reverse years of policy. It wasn't just that you fixed the ship, Du Hyun explained. It was that you risked your life to save people you didn't know, aliens who had taken you prisoner. That is not the action of a dangerous Deathworlder to be feared and contained. It is the action of a species that belongs among the stars with the rest of us. The captain handed Tae-sung a datapad. This contains official Federation recognition of your status and the offer from the Engineering Corps. You may take time to consider it. As Du Hyun turned to leave, Tae-sung asked, What about you, Captain? Won't you face consequences for breaking all those protocols? Do Hyun paused. There will be a formal review of my actions. But saving 327 Federation citizens tends to make such reviews more lenient. After the captain left, Tae-sung remained on the observation deck, looking at the stars and thinking about the future. A future where humans and aliens work together, combining the unique strengths of Earth's Deathworlders with the advanced technology of the Federation. It would not be an easy path. There would be resistance on both sides, misunderstandings, and mistakes. But as Tae-sung had proven, the impossible was often just a matter of looking at a problem differently. The Deathworlder had fixed an alien warship, and in doing so, had begun to fix something much larger, the relationship between humanity and the galaxy beyond.